Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review, and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. And today I'll be discussing Path of Daggers with Matt.
Hello. It's good to be back, Sam.
Absolutely good to have you. And for those who are not aware, this is the eighth video in our full spoiler discussions for The Wheel of Time. So we've now read 8 books together, which is very exciting. And this is going to be full spoilers, not just for Path of Daggers, but for everything before it. We haven't read the next book. Well, I mean, might have, but I haven't. So
No, I
no,
haven't. No.
we haven't. Neither of us have read Winter's Heart. So we're going to be purely discussing Path of Daggers and everything that comes before it. However, if you are spoiler averse, if you have not read the series, then this is your time to click off, read 8 books. I think it's a few thousand pages, and then just come back and carry on and watch all of the videos that we've made.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a perfect idea.
So let's go straight in with what do you think of this one, Matt?
Oh, so it's certainly not my favorite. Let's put it that way. I don't like. I think the problem, well, one of the challenges you've got is everyone talks about the slog. So you go in with a mental sort of view, expectation, I suppose, of what that means and what that's going to be. And I didn't feel it was a slog. I don't think it's the strongest book in the series by a long way. I think that's probably one of the weaker books in the series. Um, and that's not because it's not good. I just don't think there's the same amount of big hitting moments in this book as there have been in previous books, be that character development moments or just action moments. Now, there are still a couple, and we'll come on to them, I'm sure, but it didn't feel like there was as impactful moments in this book, other than perhaps maybe one, two that stand out to me. And also, I think also part of it is we don't really progress the fight between good and bad, or good and evil, and light and dark. That fight doesn't really progress. The Forsaken are very much background. There's a little bit of them, but very much background. We get more of the Shan Chan, which I would have liked even more of the Shan Chan, to be honest.
Definitely.
I think that's an interesting development, but it felt like the main plot lines didn't progress as much as they have done in previous books, and it just didn't have the same level of impactful moments as previous books. And I think that's why it falls down. I still enjoyed it. I still read it, and actually, I'd like the record to show that it's the first book I finished before Sam in this
It
series.
is, yeah.
It might be the only one I finished, so we need to make it documented everything that this has happened, because it might not happen again. Because normally Sam's waiting around for me to finish. But what was your thoughts then, Sam, on this one?
So I very, very similar. I really enjoyed this book, but like you, I finished it and felt like there was something missing. It just felt like to me like 2/3 of a book almost.
Mm,
And this was actually reinforced by when I reviewed the wiki earlier today to make sure that I was up on the most important plot points. There's actually a note here, and it says The Path of Daggers is the first book in the series that finishes with no important achievement for the light. Rand is on the run, his mental condition is declining, File is kidnapped, Egwene and Elaine are in uncertainty. The only milestone is the use of the Bowl of the Winds and improving the weather, and is reached in chapter 5.
yeah. But that, I mean, but just taking that point as well, but that takes 5 chapters to get to that, them using it,
Yeah.
which also felt too long. Like, I understand there's a lot of dynamics between different groups, and we've seen the same between all the groups that are happening under all of our main characters. Then you look at each of them; they've got different groups and all the tensions between them. And I understand building that, but it took a long time because we got the bowl at the end of the last book, and we've had it just seemed to take a long, long time that we had to get to a certain place. You know, we had to get to the King's farm, and we had to get up top of this hill, and then certain people had to do certain things. It felt that just was dragged out a little bit too long for my person. I don't think it needed to be. I liked it when the bowl they did the thing with the bowl and sort of the both side in and side R sort of just splashed across the sky, but nothing really changed
Mm.
immediately. I thought that was done well. It wasn't like an immediate change, and then like gradually as you go through the book, storms start to develop and the weather changes and it gets colder, and we know what the next book's called, so that sort of
Yeah.
indicates the weather's significantly changed. And it just makes you wonder, like, have we overshot because, are we in that sort of cycle where we're actually going to overshoot and then come back to normality? Are we going to go too far the other way and go really, really cold? Who knows? But I thought that was really nice. But I like that it was, so that element through the storyline for me worked well. I just thought it took a long time to get to actually using the bowl of winds to make a difference.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because there's. I feel like we've got to the point now where Elaine is my favourite character in, and she has a lot of screen time in Path of Daggers. And I remember starting the book and being like, oh, this is great. We're heading straight into the stuff that I'm most invested and interested in, which is the Elaine stuff, the Bowl of the Wind stuff, and like escaping Abu Dar, which I thought was a cool kind of plot device or plot point. But it's very interesting to read this wiki and be like, oh, actually very little happens in this book. Like very few big events happen in this book. Whereas I think that on the whole, the writing is still the exact same quality. I think that this is maybe one time where you're like, oh, the plotting probably could have used work here.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think we're brought into the characters now. We're so long along with them that we care about what actually happens to them, and also their development and what those storylines. I'm still engaged in the story because I care about the characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, the plot didn't move much in this, or as much as in previous books. There was still some movements, and I think Elaine. I enjoy Elaine. I think she's a good character. I think she had. For me, probably there's like the three key moments. One is obviously the Bowl of Winds, and that whole bit. But you had the bit just before that, after that, where she tries to unweave the portal.
That's afterwards, I think.
That's
so
afterwards,
they're escaping after they've used the bowl.
Yes, yeah, they've escaped Everidar. They use the bowl, then they see from the hill the lightning over around Eberdar, and then they come after them. Yeah, that's right. So I thought that was really good. And obviously you saw sort of Avienda do it previously. Which is that the first time we knew that could be done? Because I don't remember that really being discussed.
Yeah, I don't remember it coming up ever
previously.
Before, and I think that.
So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting that you can just unweave it. But then there was a bit. I'm sure there was a bit in there about the Forsaken who was watching Avienda, who was also surprised that could be done. So like, it seems like a newish thing, other than for the wise ones.
I wonder if it's something that, like, because of the Aiel discipline, they can nail it, but the Aes Sedai are a bit more like proud and like self-led, and they're less about learning and following instructions and stuff in the same way that the Aiel are. So like they don't have the discipline to learn to unpick the weave. So that's why everyone assumes it's impossible, so no one tries. Yeah, and maybe Elaine trying was actually worked out okay, but was actually horrifically dangerous, and just created this massive explosion both sides of the portal, which just devastated the Shan Chan one side, and fortunately, our main protagonist survived the other side. But yeah, it was pretty expansive moment. And you saw like the Shan Chan view of it, like one of their I really like that.
Akans was flying over, was like, what is this weapon? We didn't think they had anything of this sort of power of magnitude to threaten us. So they're seeing it as a weapon. But so I thought that was a good bit. And then obviously at the end, Elaine finally gets to Andor, to claim her throne. But I think I'm hoping there's a lot more to come there because
definitely
like she got there and then I forgot the other lady's name. who's like met her in the throne room and sort of is sort of her main rival, yet seems to be on her side. And then we just jump to Rand having a bit of a fit because she's torn down all his banners.
Yeah.
That's because, which is understandable. It makes sense for her to do that. That I thought that was, because she's just claiming that this is mine by my own right, not because some man says it can be mine. So that works. So yeah, so Elaine, I think she had some good bits in the storyline. I think, she's moved away, but I want to see more now in Camelin, and that sort of the politics of it all, because there's so much built up about what Morghese had to do to like unite the houses behind her, and all that sort of infighting and the politics, the game of houses, or whatever they call it, to go. So let's see that develops more and just see how she plays that and how that works. Obviously, with Rand sort of overbearing from the distance.
I think you've got the interesting contrast as well, where Rand has set himself up as king of Ilion now, where he's obviously sternly refused the crowns before, but he's got to the point where he's like, well, the previous king was, forsaken, so somebody's got to be king, and it might as well be me. So Rand previously was, an outsider who had a lot of power, a lot of, physical and silent power, but now he's also got a throne, and you're like, well, if he's in charge of Camelin and Cairhien and Tyr, and he's a king, why isn't he king of Camelin, Cairhien, Tyr, Ilion? And then you have... So I think that's going to be a big misunderstanding between Elaine and Rand. I think that she's going to think Rand is like, no, I'm going to be the first king of Camelin or whatever. And I think that's where we're going to go with this storyline, and what's going to keep that from being resolved. I read, I was watching a podcast today. They were talking about Wheel of Time, and they said that Robert Jordan had made a joke that the book would have been a trilogy if everyone wasn't an idiot. And I think that's quite a good idea, quite a good joke.
Yeah. There's a lot of, there's a lot around. If people just spoke to each other and there was a little bit of trust, it would go a long way in these storylines. In some cases, but he sort of built up the distrust between them all quite well. Like Elaine and Rand is interesting because obviously there's like the romantic feelings. Between Elaine and him, but also like what happened to her mum.
Yeah.
Are the rumours true, etc., etc. And it was quite like the ending of this book where we sort of zoom out and we sort of get all the rumours that are floating around that this has happened, or maybe this has happened, or maybe this has happened. And no one really knows what. Joe Public doesn't really know what's actually happened. You just got all these rumours swirling around, like so. Maybe the Shan Chan have taken over huge space. Maybe they've taken this bit. Maybe they've been pushed back into the ocean again. There's so many rumours flying around that no one really knows what's the truth. I thought that was nice, sort of zooming out of the chaos that is unravelling in this land. So Elaine did good. I think just talking about Abu Dar. Actually, before we come on to the main characters, there's a couple of things I wanted to pick up before we get into the other main characters. From the prologue and the early chapter. So in the prologue, it doesn't come up the rest of the book, which Jordan has a habit of putting something in the prologue that then I'm assuming is going to come back in later books. But we had like 4 leaders from the Borderlands meeting up, heading south, leaving the Borderlands and heading south to basically confront Rand. It wasn't particularly clear what the exact plans were, but to confront Rand. And they also seemingly have 13 Aes Sedai between them. The sums. I was like, well, that doesn't sound like a great combination.
Doesn't bode well.
I'm sure Rand will welcome you with open arms. If that happens. So I was like, okay, so that's something built. And the other bit was about Verin, the brown Aes Sedai, because she was in the Aiel and she was using some form. It wasn't like full on compulsion by the sound of it, but some form of like mild compulsion on the Aes Sedai prisoners.
Yeah.
Um, but we don't know to do what or what is her bidding. Like I remember we had this conversation way back in one of the first books when she gave the ring to Egwene, and we're like, and she didn't share all the information about the ring from the other person's notes. We're like, well, what is she up to? What is her game? And I've still got that question, like, what is she up to? What is, there's more.
There's more than meets
to
the
that.
eye to Verin, definitely.
Yeah. What is she doing on that front? And again, then we don't touch on it again for the rest of the book. So who knows? Maybe we'll come back to it at some point. And the other one, and again, this happens in the early chapter, but I thought it was good because it was something we quite enjoyed in the previous book, was the Golem.
Yeah.
We actually get his POV, just very, very, like a page or page and a half. It was quite short.
Yeah.
But we get quite interesting insights. Like he can obviously sense the one power, but he can also sense the connection to the one power further away. So even though that Avienda unwove it, he could feel where it'd come out, which I thought was quite interesting. Obviously, he's pretty vampiric in his tastes. He likes to taste the fresh blood, especially human. But there was a bit in there that I thought was quite interesting. It leads back to something I think we discussed previously about time and place, I suppose. But he sort of discusses like how primitive society and people are, and that he remembers times when there was like weapons that could destroy places from like countries away, and you're like, well, that just sounds like ballistic missiles or intercontinental ballistic missiles and things like that. And there's sort of that sort of connection of our future and its past kind of sort of clashing, and that this wheel is infinite and continues to turn, and just those little bits of just like, oh, okay, so there was a future. And I know we've discussed like what is things made out of, like the White Bridge. What was the White Bridge made out of? And it sounded like a bit like some sort of hardened
like
plastic.
Plastic,
yeah. So there's
really
all these different things.
Stuff.
The same with the White Tower to a certain extent. Like, what is the White Tower made out of? It's sort of unblemishable. So
it's like Quaindiar, isn't it? Like
like they're really hard. That they've sealed the
seals with.
It's unbreakable. Otherwise, so there's those bits that I thought was quite interesting. I know that it was just before, but I thought they were just like little points, and obviously they don't come up in the rest of the story, so we won't discuss them again. But I just thought there's little bits that just sort of there's something else happening, and the prologues are generally pretty interesting, but they generally are not unrelated to the rest of the story of that book. There's something else that's happening that we're not going to touch on until the later books. Seems to be the way he writes them, from what I'm gathering from reading them. They don't really lead to anything in the book that they're the prologue for. So, but that's what I want to say on that, just before we got into all the main characters.
Yeah.
So,
I think, So, do you want to start with Rand? I feel like he's got the most going on.
I think Rand's got the most. We can start with Rand, if you want. I mean, Rand has like grown so much for me over these books. Like, we started like book 1, book 2, I was like not that interested in him really. But the way Jordan sort of details his descent into madness, I think is brilliant. I'm just so enraptured by it. It's just engrossing to listen to like Lewis Theron talking in his head, and they're not talking. They're also sort of driving him, mad, because then him questioning his whole identity. Does he exist? Was he just a voice in my head? Is he real? And then he comes back, and you get the scene where Lewis Theron then finally talks to him again, and he just goes into like uncontrollable fits of laughter, like a proper madman, like a stereotypical mad person, which I thought was great. And it's just like that, the lack of control. And this is what I said, where you've got like impactful moments. He does have, I would argue, probably the biggest impactful moment in the book, when they're facing the Shan Chan. Excuse me. And it's just, he's brought, and you guessed it was Calendar that he'd brought back, didn't you?
Yeah.
Earlier on, as I didn't know what it was.
Straight away, I was like, it's Calendar. I was like, what could he have sent? Is it to Shiva that he sent to get it?
No, it began with Na, wasn't it? Ra.
It's the guy
I
that
can't
he
remember.
actually trusts.
Yeah, I don't think it's Shiva because Shiva's a little bit
Shiva,
absent-minded.
as we know, is
No,
not on the team.
I think it began with an R, but I can't remember. Anyway, yes, he sent
Yeah.
one of them to go and collect something, but we didn't know what it was. And my initial thought was like the little statues of
Mm,
the massive statues because they were hidden away.
yeah, he's hidden those
I can't
in
even remember where he's
Ruodan, I
hidden them.
think.
Is it? I can't remember.
I
So.
feel like
So
he's
did he take
hidden
them
them
back
there.
from Ruodan and put them in
Oh, yeah.
Karian? Or came? I can't.
What one day we'll
We'll
remember.
look it up at some point. That's what I thought he got him to get. And then there was like some moment that he was on his saddle. He was like a slim package
Hmm.
under his leg, under in his saddle. I was like, oh, okay, no, it's not that statues. Then it's it must be Calendar. But
Yeah.
then we have that fight or fights with the Shan Chan, and I quite
Hmm.
enjoyed the fights with the Shan Chan, and I quite like that we got more Shan Chan viewpoints. And we started to sort of see a bit more of like how their scouting's done, their messaging system between like the
Yeah.
flying beasts and the ground, and like a bit more of the hierarchy within that. I was disappointed that the general that we got the points of view from was then dead. I was like, because I
I
wanted him to
really
build up.
liked his character.
Yeah, I'd like to see more of him building up. We got a bit, like, what are the blood, being part of the blood was like that's royal line. I'm sort of getting the impression of like royal blood.
Hmm.
Um, and how the society, this very hierarchical society, is working. And it was quite satisfying, getting a view of Leandrin
Hmm.
now being like, in servitude to the High Lady, whatever her
That,
name is.
yeah. Suroth?
Suroth, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So,
I really liked getting more of a view on the Shan Chan. I like the idea that they're like, well, we don't come to these countries with a huge force, but when we turn up, we basically conscript everyone we conquer. So the army just gets bigger and bigger and bigger,
yeah,
which I found really interesting. And obviously, they have what sounds like bats that they're riding.
yeah, it's sort of, but I mean, yeah, so the back, like, I also get like, and I really don't want to hark back to the Lord of the Rings, but like the Nazgul of a Lord of the Rings vibe. But yeah, very sort of they've got a very reptilian feel, the Shan Chan in general. Like their armor is all like
It's
sort
bugs,
of
isn't it?
plated and like insectoid, I think it's described as. So you get this very sort of reptilian insectoid feel to it. And then you got these like raptor things.
Yeah.
I sort of
And
imagine more pterodactyl style
yeah.
than in my head more than the bat maybe. But
And
yeah.
there's also, I don't know when. So the one thing that they've referenced a few times but has never been described is like a troop transport version of these bats that
Mm,
can carry large
yeah.
amounts of stuff.
Numbers. Yeah.
Because they're like, oh yeah, there's the Murakan or something, and the
Yeah.
Torakan, and the Torakan is like, and it's like, oh, her and her entourage must have taken a Torakan, and you're like, oh, there's something real big here.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm
These
excited about that.
enormous beasts.
Is it just a dragon? Like, is that where we're gonna get? You know, is there going to be an
Could
actual
be.
dragon? Because no one knows what a dragon is, do they? They all go like, "Oh, is this a dragon?"
Yeah, it's true actually.
Because they're like, "Oh, it just looks like a snake with legs." Whenever they talk about Rand's dragon tattoos and stuff,
Yeah.
but the dragon has to come from somewhere. So maybe
That is a
the
good
Shan
point.
Chan have
Yeah.
dragons, which would be
Yeah.
super interesting. I was kind of like in my head, I'm like, oh, they're riding like giant beetles, and then they said leathery wings, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
no. But I loved the whole concept of the Shan Chan being this like invader from across the sea, and like nobody goes in the sea, like no one leaves the continent, and like the
Yeah.
map for the whole of Wheel of Time is just that one small area of the continent. It doesn't even cover the whole continent because it's not like it's you don't see around the top and right
Yeah.
hand edge. It's just
Yeah.
mountains.
You just get the borderlands and
The spine of the world, isn't it, on the
yeah.
right? Which is very
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right.
And I wonder if it's because the rest of the, like some of the rest of the world is like uninhabitable from nuclear warfare or something.
Yeah, well, you've got like I want to say the Badlands. It's not the Badlands. Like right up in the north, which
The
are like
yeah,
like
blight,
the nuclear
the blight,
waste. The Blight. Thank you. Yeah.
and
So yeah, that is a bit like what you
is
think of nuclear fallout. Just
is Shio Ghul in the blight, or is it? I feel like it's an island. In my head, it's an island somewhere.
I don't think it's an island.
I'm going to Google Wheel of Time map. I
We'll
reckon
have a
it
look at
probably.
that now.
Okay, I've got it. I've got.
It's in. I think it is in the Blight or the
Oh yeah,
Mounds of
it's
Doom.
right at the top, isn't it?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, it's right at the top there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see more about the storms and the water stuff.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that also the Shan Chan use not Shan Chan, sorry, the Sea Folk use magic to move their ships. So does that mean like, oh, that's the reason why people can't cross the ocean because the wind isn't strong enough? There's some theories I could posit there.
Yeah, I think there's. I mean, this is always what Jordan does to us, and we're always constantly questioning about what curiosity driven. But you've also got like, so you got like, as you say, this invading force, this colonizers, basically, this colonial power, which, other than the one power, which they do have a certain amount of power on because they've got the Suldam and the
Yeah.
Damani, they are a much superior fighting force
Seems like it.
than locals. It seems, by the speed at which they are, taking places until Rand turns up with a bunch of Ashman, or they blow the horn, or something, more powerful comes along. But in general, they seem very powerful in comparison. It is very much to that colonial power. And it goes back to what you were saying about them then sort of recruiting locals into the ranks to be part of that force, and it does give that sort of colonial presence on that front and the control. So I thought that is really interesting. I think you get little glimpses as well about what's happening in the world. And he talks about the Empress, and he talks about that is the Crystal Throne. And he also, there's a little sentence in there somewhere about you have a thirst to obey, like when you're in the presence of the Empress of the Crystal Throne, you have a thirst to obey. And that just made me, and I know it's probably not, and I'm probably getting carried away, but about compulsion, and we can compel people like the Forsaken lady whose name escapes me, Grandal.
Mogideon or
No,
Grandal?
Grandal, the one that sort of brings everyone, like all the really pretty people, to be her
Yeah,
slaves and
Grandal. Yeah.
servants, and just there's like that is like pure on compulsion. There's well something similar within that Shan Chan, whether it's just because it's such a hierarchical society, they just obey the more senior because the repercussions are too severe to not. But yeah, the Shan Chan, it was just so I was really interested in seeing what they were doing. I was very fascinated, and I enjoyed the character we got the viewpoint from. And then he then dies, and I'm like, well, that's disappointing. I wanted a lot more of the Shan Chan. But it's coming back to Rand. Obviously, Rand has this huge moment with Kalendor, where he's like, "This is just dragging on." I did this thing with Kalendor back in the Stone of Tyr when I killed all the Trollocs by
Yeah.
creating lightning down the character. Let's just do that here. And he just
Does not work
lets
out for him.
loose. And, well, I mean, he kills a lot of Shan Chan, but he
Yeah.
also kills sort of just his complete unawareness of it all, just like killing his own people, just absolute destruction. And you're like, this is the prophecy coming true. This is his descent into madness. This reminded me of going all the way back to the very first prologue and
Yeah.
Lewis Theron just walking through the remnants of everything he's destroyed, and all the people, like close people to him that he's destroyed, not really realize what he's doing. And it's that sort of reminiscent of that decline into insanity. I thought it was brilliant. I thought that was for me the best bit of the book. And then there was but there wasn't enough of that for me in the books compared to the other books. There was just that one moment. I was like, wow, that is huge. But that was really I mean, I'm thoroughly enjoying Rand's descent. And we also have the Asherman. Um,
And the betrayal thereof, which I mean, we both predicted this a while ago, but it's nice to be right on our prediction that the Black Tower was going to turn out to be bad guys.
yeah, I think it's just the Taim bit. I still don't get Taim. I don't like. I think we discussed this at the beginning. I don't trust him. I
No.
never trust him from the beginning. Yeah, so I don't know why Rand still trusts Taim. Like we never trust him from the beginning because of the way it seems to be just ceding power to him with the creation of the Ashman. And then you've got like this betrayal of the Ashman who Taim is trained. But Rand brings sort of Taim comes to Rand and he's like, their heads will be on the betrayal tree or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, fine, but why does Rand continue to trust him? And that relationship I don't get at the moment. I know he's bringing a lot of men to the power, which Rand wants, but it just feels like Rand is ceding a lot of power, and as we've seen, that can be very dangerous.
I think Rand thinks that he's smarter than Time, and he's not. I think very clearly he isn't. And I think Rand also thinks that he's more powerful. So he's like, I'm smarter, I'm more powerful, I've got the armies behind me. And I think that he also thinks that the like allegiance of a lot of the Asherman is to him, not to Taim, which I don't agree. I don't think he's correct there.
No, I don't think he's correct because they all call Taim leader.
They call him Mahale. Yeah.
Yeah, Mahale, that's the word. Yeah, it's just, and there's that, and then you've got Logain has now turned up at the Black Tower as well, and the Aes Sedai that have gone to the Black Tower have been captured.
Yeah.
By the Asherman as well. So I don't know. There's a lot of forces gathering at the Black Tower, which I don't think Rand has control over at all, no matter what he thinks. And yes, he is more powerful than any of them as individuals, but
they can make a circle, and then that's it.
They can make a circle, and they have Aes Sedai there now who can make the circle with them, so they can make big circles.
I feel like as well, wasn't there a thing where the men could take charge of the circles? Was there something? Was that talked about that when men and women make a circle, men can control it?
There was something along the lines of, I think if, like, so you can make a circle of like 13, which women can do, but I think if you go beyond that, then a man has to connect and therefore control.
Yeah.
I think something along those lines that you have to.
So
like, if it's going beyond 13, so if it's a bigger one, then the man has control.
And the Aes Sedai don't necessarily need to want to betray Rand to actually betray him. They could just be linked in, and Taim can be like, right, time to shield this bad boy.
Well, exactly. And it's also like, I mean, my question is, can compulsion on an Aes Sedai work to force them to create a circle?
I mean, we've seen
in that sense, because Logain can compel them effectively by kissing them, which is.
And we've got the Soldam and Damane as well, the Adam. And obviously, they could just get some Adam and clip them onto some Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
But I think you do have to be able to wield Saidar to use an Adam, I think. But maybe it just means you have to be able to use the power, not that you have to be able to use specifically the female half.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to find out more details on that one.
Because we still haven't heard anything about Domain and him throwing the black Adam into the ocean yet. So who knows what's happened to him, that poor guy.
It's obviously going to be important. And also, I remember saying last time, I was like, oh, maybe Moraine actually is dead. Because it's been a while. It's been like 4 books.
Lanfear and Moraine. It does feel like a long time now. But it does feel like they're dead.
I'm still 100% certain they're coming back. Well,
it's the same
I'm less certain now. But I was 100%. Now I'm like 99.
It's the same with oh goodness, I've forgotten the name. Who was the one he killed in the end, or killed in the end of the last book?
Samael.
Is Samael, yeah. And you're like, there's no, you're like, yeah, that doesn't, that, no, I don't think you did, but okay. So
There's
yeah, but no, I'm enjoying Rand. Rand is
Mm.
good.
And I think my favourite bit in this book was the manipulation and the politicking with the Aes Sedai, with Egwene, where she basically had to play like dumb for like the whole
Yeah,
book, and then that she just like twists it on their head, and she's like,
yeah,
"No, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that," and I'm the effing Amelin seat,
yeah,
and I was like, "Yes, I've
yeah.
got."
When that was so good. That scene. Go on. Yeah,
That's
sorry.
definitely my favourite bit of the book. I was listening to it while walking around Centre Parks, pushing a pram. So getting Alice to have a nap, and I'm listening to Wheel of Time on my audiobook, and I'm going like, yes, this bit's so good.
Yeah, it was so good. That bit where, she got them to declare war, and then she was just like, yep. And now that puts me in control of all decisions related to the war. And you just have to agree with me. But
Yeah.
like, oh, that's so
I really like later on, there
good.
was a little moment where she's like, well, the Hall always had a debate of whether something was actually to do with the war or not. I was like,
Yeah,
even with all of this, they found a way to argue about it,
yeah, yeah. It was
which I
bound to
did
happen.
like. I like the characters that are in the Little Towers Hall, like Ramunda and the other one whose name I can never remember, and like how Ramunda's like the basically the stick and the other one's the
Yeah.
carrot.
Is it Lilane?
Elaine, yeah.
Yeah.
I like both of them and both of their reactions when Egwene's like, everyone sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to the
So
nobles.
good.
Gareth Bryn
Yeah. I
is
mean,
great as well.
I think that was so good. Just that whole scene. I mean, like it's kind of like a courtroom scene, wasn't it? Where she just like pulled it out and like just get into like, and it was a bit like you get into like some technical details about the rules and what it all means. It's like sitting in Parliament. I was like, but this is so satisfying that she just tied them up by their own rules, and there's
The
nothing they can do
the
really.
girl who knew what was going on and what she was trying to do and was like, oh no. Like the one person who figures it out just
Yeah,
before it happens.
yeah, knows all the rules, but this has to say, yeah, she's right. This is the law because I can't lie. So yeah,
Yeah. And then there's that one sitter who's been controlled, manipulated by Galena as well,
mm.
who I'm sure. I wonder. I don't know what's going on with Galena. In the back of my mind, I have a theory that she's Asmodeon, returned from the dead, because they specifically say that she used to be a man, which is why she can use Sidene, and she was returned from the dead as a woman.
Who's Halima?
Halima,
Halima.
that's it, not Galena. Yeah,
I say
Halima.
Galena's another Aes Sedai somewhere
Yeah.
else. Yeah, Halima, the servant. Yeah, yeah. I think. Yeah, I thought that was fascinating. So I remember we discussed like how is a woman using the male power. We got into like it's using the true power or the one power or whatever else. I think you made it. I think it was yourself made a comment about have we got something along the trans sort of discussion spectrum, and it is fascinating. So, my understanding is that it is presumably one of the Forsaken who was killed off early. Because there was that scene again, going back quite a few books, where two individuals are brought back from the dead, and they never described exactly who they are or who they've become. But I'm assuming this is Halima or what's the other? That's Aaron Gar. Aaron Gar. Um, but they say, yeah, who was a man, has been brought back as a woman, but still
Yeah.
uses the male side of the force. I think it's a sort of
It's a very interesting thing for Jordan to do in the 90s. I
yeah,
was
it's a
thinking as I was
fascinating
reading it.
idea. Yeah, it's a fascinating idea of sort of doing that switch, especially as so much of this series is about discussion of male and female and the two genders and the sort of the separation of powers and all of that within a matriarchal society. And we've then got this one character who was male, is now female, still uses the male side of the Force, even though they're in a female form. I think it's a
It shows you that the magic, the one power, is not biological. It's more to do with who you feel you are, in many ways. And obviously that could be disproven later on down the line. But
yeah.
that's where I guess, looking at it with the 2024 lens, I was looking at it going, this feels like Jordan is going, if you feel you're male, you can use Sidene rather than Sidar. But yeah, I will be really interested to see how that develops. And
Yeah,
I've got to say, if it isn't Asmodean, I think that Jordan has missed a trick, because
I
Asmodean,
see.
I think he's the character that has the most relationship to us as a reader. None of the
Yeah, see,
other characters that have died have been that close to us.
no, but and I may be getting my timings wrong, but I thought the scene of the two people being brought back was before Asmodean died.
Oh, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that's my big theory.
I'm not sure.
My other
In
big
my head,
theory is
in
that
my
Moraine is still alive. So,
as you could well be, but in my little timeline in my head, that happened prior to that. So if they are Forsaken, they're either like the ones that died in the very first book. Because there was my thought process is there's two died in the very first book
yeah,
who just appeared and they were immediately killed. But there was two of them, and that's why I know there was two that have been brought back. We don't know who the second one is, but the first one I think seems to be this Halima, who's now in a grain service. But I don't know who the other one is, unless the other one is like, because there's this Moradin character
yeah,
who's
but
now been named as Nablis.
yeah, as the top dog for the
Yeah,
Forsaken.
the Prince of Darkness, basically, in my head. I don't know where he's come from either, really.
I feel yeah, I feel like he's just another Forsaken that we hadn't
Yeah,
gotten round to. But yeah, there is definitely something going on with Halima. So interesting.
yeah, and I like the fact that she is slowly killing off everybody around Egwene. Like all the other maids to Egwene have just, except for one, I think, has now disappeared. We get the scene of her burying people
I thought that
in the
was really
forest.
good.
Yeah,
I
and
I was walking through the forest as I was listening to that, going like, I think before we wrap up, we need to talk about a couple more things, which is
oh yes,
Perrin and
absolutely.
Fael.
Yeah,
I feel like Perrin did not have much to do this book, but all of his chapters were very enjoyable because of the position that he's in, and also
yeah.
Elias coming back, which I did not expect at all.
No, but I did find him coming back was great. It was great to see him come back. I thought it
Yeah,
was very strange that he came back and was just giving marriage advice. I thought that was a bit odd, but okay. That seems to be his role in this book.
yeah, he's just Perrin's dad.
Just giving the young kids some marriage advice.
Yeah,
Okay, fine. Yes, no, I'm really enjoying Perrin. I know some people don't enjoy him as a character, but I thoroughly enjoy him. I think he's a bit different from the others.
definitely.
I think him and Fael work well. I think I love the fact that he can smell feelings. I think it's such a fascinating way of getting feelings across without, someone having to express something and being able to sniff out what someone's really feeling behind the impression they're giving to the outside world as well. So you can have that sort of dichotomy of what is true and what is not true. So I quite enjoy that. I think he's just a different character. Like there was a scene where they find some of the prophet's men who are, I think did they burn people in a building or something like that. He basically has them hung, and he's just
Yeah,
like, no, like, no, you're getting hung. That's it. And he basically just hangs them, and that's it. There's no, that is just for him. That is just justice, and you just feel like I don't think any of the other main characters would have the same view of that scenario that he has. Like Rand is, I mean,
Rand is
probably
Rand.
would kill them, but he's
He would do
losing
it
his
himself,
mind. So
probably.
yeah, he's certainly going down a route that questions his moral judgments. Matt wouldn't, but we'll come on to Matt at the moment because where the hell is he?
Yeah.
Uh,
Or
uh,
will we?
and then I don't think any of the three or four main females would either. So I think it's very much, Perrin stands on his own at that front, and I do like the Perrin Fael dynamic. I like how smart she is
Yeah.
in the House of Games, and also how straightforward Perrin is, which just plays so well with how sort of clever Fael is. Like that partnership works so well.
Yeah, I think they're a really good partnership. I like them together. I like Fael more every book she's in.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed seeing Morghese and Leany and Talonvor and all those characters, but none of them have any POVs. So,
No.
they're obviously important characters that we've seen loads, but we see them through other people's eyes who don't know them. And I was like, this is Robert Jordan, trying to be funny. This is quite funny to me, to be reading, about Morghese being a bit of an ass. Morghese is still probably my favourite minor character. I guess she's not that minor, but a character that you don't see very much of. I think she's one of my favourites.
She's not one of the big ones.
No.
Yeah, you're quite into your House Trakan, aren't you?
I don't.
Morghese and Elaine.
I don't. I think I really liked Elaine. I think I liked Elaine initially as being different to all the main cast because she comes from money.
Yes.
She's got a very different life.
Different. Yeah.
So she stood out from everyone else. No one else is. None of the main cast is nobly born. Well, now Fael is, I guess.
Yeah, and she was always the one, nobly born and always going to the White Tower. That was always her journey through life, because everybody else just ended up at the White Tower because of other things.
Yeah. I like also that felt like she very organically became the main character. I feel like Jordan likes Elaine a lot, because she very rarely gets scenes where she comes off badly, whereas Nynaeve I think comes off badly in some scenes, and all of the boys except for Perrin have their moments.
Yeah.
Perrin is a really fascinating character. I think like you were saying, he's very different as well. And it's hard to say that because we haven't seen Matt in a while. It's hard to give your favourites for the main boys. But Elaine is definitely my favourite of the girls, and I do like Rand a lot. I like Perrin a lot. I'm super interested in what's going on with Logain as a minor character. Him being cured and unblocked, as it were, by Nynaeve. I was like, oh, this character is now infinitely more interesting, and I really want to know what's going on with him. And obviously we have Min's viewing that he's going to be a heroic character, but he's currently possibly working for Taim, and Taim does not seem like a heroic character. So there's definitely lots going on with a lot of these minor characters that I really like a lot of. And yeah, Perrin. Perrin's stuff for this book was really good. His Perrin has always been kind of caught between two positions he doesn't want to be in either of. And this one specifically, I feel doesn't want to be a lord, keeps wanting to look after his own horses, and they're like, oh, if you look after your own horses, that tells the farriers that they don't know what they're doing. And I was like, oh, that's such a good forcing Perrin to be a lord against his will, which is very funny. His relationship with Fael is really strong and interesting, and I am interested to see if they get to the point where him and Fael are having children, because obviously they're trying, and when you're that young, it's not that hard. So I'm interested to see where that goes. I guess the thing is as well, like the last 4 books have only been like 3 months worth of time, so who
Yeah.
knows how long these kids will take to pop out. But yeah, I like where we're going a lot with Masima and Perrin. I think Masima also very interesting character, and like all the stuff that he does, where it's like, oh yeah, well he won't. He has like the same simple meal prepared for him by a housewife or whatever. You're like, yeah, but he does live in the biggest mansion in the town. Like,
Yes, it's different. Is this sort of There's
lots of contradictions there.
exactly contradictions. That's the right word. I think thinking about what's coming in the next book,
Mm,
like I think Perrin's potentially got quite a dilemma.
yeah,
If he does get the warning of what's happened to Fail having been taken by the Shido, because he's got a mission from Rand to get Masima to Rand,
yeah,
and Masima won't travel. He will only go basically by horse. But is Masima trustworthy because of he's supposed to be liaising with the Shan Chan?
yeah,
But Perrin's also going to the bit where Fail has now been taken by the Shido Aiel. And if you remember right back to when I actually probably sort of fell in love with the Perrin character was when Fail was in danger,
mm,
he separated from the rest of the group to save her at the
mm,
Stone of Tyr, as
yeah,
everybody else went into Stone of Tyr, and he stayed separate to save her. So I'm curious to see how that plays out for Perrin,
yeah,
what decisions he makes, because he tries to do the right thing, but what is the right thing
yeah,
for him in this instance? I think will be fascinating. If we see that in the next book. Um, I mean, Matt,
mm,
has he just been stuck under a wall for the past however long it's been going on? Weeks, months?
yeah.
Because
One
like
is one assumes that the next book is going to be heavy Matt because like
it's got to be. You can't have
it's
two
like
books without Matt, surely.
yeah, and yeah, heavy Matt stuff, and well, we'll talk about this a little bit later. I've got another game to play this week, not just the percentages.
Ooh. So just on the Matt thing, I think
Yeah,
I'd be interested to see in the next book because he's still in Abu Dar, whether this is the
yeah,
point where we start to get him and the Shan Chan mixing,
absolutely.
because we know of the prophecy with the daughter of the Nine Moons, or whatever
Mm.
her title is, is the Shan Chan. So, I wonder if this is the point now where Matt is sort of somehow brought
Gets
into that sort of
involved.
Shan Chan sphere of influence, or
Mm.
however it works out, because that I think that could be the moment where we start to see that as well. So I'd be and hopefully we'll then get more of the Shan Chan
Yeah,
viewpoints.
and did, for example, the Shan Chan conquer Ebu Dar because they got that messenger who overheard Matt talking about the daughter of the Nine Moons in Ebu Dar. So is that the
Mm.
cause of why they picked Ebu Dar in the first place? Which I would find very interesting if they actually nailed that down. Yeah, I'm hoping for a Matt heavy book.
I think it's got to be. I don't think you can go 2 books without. I mean, we did the first 2 books. He went without Matt basically,
Yeah.
so he could do another 2 books, but without an appeal at all. And also, I was thinking about this. I know we haven't actually. We're getting towards the end, and we haven't actually done our game of who's the most percentage-wise.
Mm.
Um, but actually, I don't think, and I know you'll have the wiki open. I was thinking about this because I think the most is probably either Elaine or Rand. I imagine they're pretty both at the top. But I was thinking about it's probably Elaine because I don't think we actually get a viewpoint from Nynaeve.
No
I think we get
Nynaeve, no?
Nynaeve in the book, but I think it's all from Elaine's point of view,
Yeah, there's
like
no
how
Nynaeve.
nuts she's going because of Lan. But we don't actually get any Nynaeve viewpoints either in this book. So we get no Matt viewpoint and no Nynaeve viewpoint in this book, which is curious.
Yeah. But we get our first Avienda POV, or one of the first. I don't know if it's the
Yeah,
first one, but chapter
I think
one
it's
is
the
all
first one,
Avienda,
but when she's escaping from
the farm, the Kim's
Evidar, and she has the
farm.
feelings being
Oh,
watched.
yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed seeing more of Avienda's point of view. I'd like to see more.
Yeah,
So would you like to guess who's number one and who's number two? You did guess right, the top two,
so Elaine
Elaine
and
and
then
Rand.
Rand. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense to me. And then it'll be or Perrin and Egwene. I'm not quite sure which way around that'll be, but it'll be those four will be the top. I was only thinking about it now. I hadn't realised that we didn't get a Nynaeve point of view until I was thinking about it as I was sort of reading through my notes, thinking we saw a fair bit of her about, but we didn't actually see from her viewpoint at any point about what she's actually feeling around now being married to Lan and that relationship and how that's changed potentially.
So I'll give you the top 4, which are I think the most interesting, and maybe the top 5 actually. So number 1 is Elaine with almost 20%, which is so 19.2. So that's actually a very strong. Most of the time recently, the top percent POV has been like 15. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Rand is number 2 with 16, and then Egwene 14.4, and Perrin 13.9. So Egwene and Perrin very close together, which is interesting because I felt like Perrin had very little in terms of chapters in this book, but Egwene, obviously, I felt Egwene was more, but I guess it's because more important things are happening to Egwene. The like world-shaking stuff is happening to Egwene, and the like character drama is happening to Perrin. But those are both very interesting. Like I think Jordan writes both ends of the stick very well. So here's the new game. There are 15 books in the Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
Where do you think that Path of Daggers is in order of Goodreads ranking?
Ooh. Oh God. Okay. Well, I mean, okay. It's difficult to know because obviously we've not read 7 of them, but of the first 8, it's got to be. I mean, it's got to be one of the low ones. So I would say probably 13th out of 15.
You're very close. It is the 14th book. So there's only one book rated worse.
Would say which one that one is, so I can. Is that one we've not read yet?
It's one we've not read yet.
Okay. That really makes me look forward to the rest of the series.
And it is the worst of the first 8. All of the first 8 are above a 4.0, apart from Path of Daggers. That's interesting because I still rated that a 4 personally, and it's only rated 3.93. So it's not like it's a low score, but I do find that things below 4 on Goodreads tend to be like, this actually isn't a great book.
Yeah.
So that's a fun game for this week, and I'll try and remember to do the same thing again next time.
Yeah, I thought it'd be, one of the worst ones.
Which is weird because I still loved the book. Like, I still had a great time.
Yeah, I still enjoyed the book. I think...
I remember putting it down and going like, oh, okay. And it is the shortest, so that might be a big reason as to why it feels like that.
Yeah. I just don't think, I think I've said at the beginning, I don't think there was as many big moments in this book as there were in the previous books. I think it set up a lot of potential big moments coming, and it did feel a bit of a setup book in that sense. I think also there was bits that took a long time to get to, which felt unnecessarily long, like the stuff with the Bowl of Winds. It just felt a long time to get to that point from the previous book to when it actually happened. But I still enjoy it. I think at this point, I think the vast majority of readers are just so bought into the world and the characters that if you're going to have a little bit of a slump in what are still very good books, this is the time to do it because people are going to continue to read.
It's so interesting because a lot of people, like when I was looking at Crown of Swords, because I remember I'd read Crown of Swords like a few weeks before we got to doing this, so I ended up sitting down and watching a load of spoiler recaps because I was like, I want to make sure that I know what's going on. And a load of booktubers that I really usually vibe with hated Crown of Swords, but I loved it. No, it wasn't Crown of Swords that they hated, it was Lord of Chaos that they hated. And Lord of Chaos, I think, is maybe my favourite. Like, tied with Shadow Rising, I think. 6 and 4 are currently my favourites.
Yeah.
But you know, Do Mi's Wells, hard to top that. And lots of great stuff happens in 6. But anyway, I've got one final game. Are you ready? Give me one prediction for the next book. One quick short prediction.
One quick short prediction. That. Well, I think I've probably given it. Matt will meet with the Shan Chan.
Mine is Moraine is back. That's it.
Well,
I'm gonna make it every time.
The other one, I reckon it's going to be really cold.
Yeah, that might be it.
Actually, I did open it. I just wanted to read you. Like, I did open it before I was waiting on the call, and it was a little bit like the very first, like
the quote thing.
Quote at the beginning. It says, "The seals that hold back night shall weaken, and in the heart of winter shall winter's heart be born. Amid the wailing of lamentations and the gnashing of teeth, for winter's heart shall ride a black horse, and the name of it is death." What got me from that is the seals that hold back night shall weaken, which just automatically makes you think of
the Quendiar seal things, yeah.
Yeah, and we know they're weakening already, but does that mean we're going to get is it going to pick up speed now that we've started changing the weather?
Yeah, and what's Lan's horse is a black stallion, and it's called Mandarb, right? Mandarb? Yeah. What's Mandarb mean? I know they've told us what it means.
They did tell us, and I
wonder if that epigraph is a reference to Mandarb.
Is it called death? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I'm Googling it on the wiki, and hopefully they won't spoil it for me.
I don't think it will be.
It means blade in the old
blade
tongue.
Okay.
Yeah, very interesting. I like that he talks about how somebody else rides Mandarb in this book, and they're like terrified of it. Elaine, I think, rides Mandarb and is like terrified of it because it's like, she says it's almost as much of a weapon as its rider. It's like, this horse is badass. I've never seen a horse bigged up so much in a book.
Oh man!
It doesn't even have a unicorn wings or anything, you know. But anyway,
I'm looking forward to next. But I think, as you said, I think we know. I think this is the anticipation. Like, we know we're in what people view as the weaker part of the series, but actually we're still enjoying it. And I think, I think we had different points at the beginning. Like the very first book, I think we fell quite differently on where we were. Like that was.
I thought it was going to be bad, so I was like, "Wow, this is." I was like ready for it to be bad for like 4 books, and then when the first book, I was like, "Oh, I'm enjoying this." It does probably help also that I haven't read Lord of the Rings, so there's like all of that stuff was newish to me, and I'm not a big fan of the movies, so I've not been like most people who are like watch the movies every year or whatever. The vague story of Lord of the Rings is very far in my rearview mirror.
Yeah, that probably helps for the first book, but I think now we're both in a very similar position. Actually, we're thoroughly enjoying it, and even with this weaker book, I think it's still a great book. I think. I think I gave it 4 stars. Well, I did give it 4 stars.
I gave it a 4.
I thought it was just right, but I just it wasn't like the other ones have been pushing that 5-star much more, and this one wasn't pushing that. But it was still, as I'm engrossed in the characters, engrossed in the world. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
And let's hope Matt, which I didn't think I'd be saying after the first 2 books either.
Yeah.
Let's hope Matt is back in this one.
Absolutely. Cool. Let's wrap that one up then. So, if you have read The Path of Daggers, please drop some spoiler-filled comments down below, because no one should be watching this if they've not read it. So please feel free to do full spoilers for the entire series up to Path of Daggers. We would love to talk with you guys about your thoughts, feelings, and if you're reading along with us, give us some predictions. And you can't Google anything because that's against the rules. You can't play the other games because you can just Google them. Matt can't Google them because he has to look at my face. If you have not subscribed to the channel, then I would recommend you do so. We're building a great community here. We're over 1,000 strong. And also, if you haven't liked this video, give it a like, because that tells YouTube that you liked it, which is quite obvious, really, but there you have it. And if you are just finding this channel, this video, this series through this video, there is a playlist which will be linked down below, which has every single video that I've made about Wheel of Time. And there is also a separate playlist that is just the spoiler discussions. So if you are interested in any of those things, I've tried to organise it all specifically to make it easier for you to enjoy. And speaking of enjoying, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, week, evening, whatever you're up to, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.
Bye.